4 minutes going,
Pretty busy.
yeah. Trying to come out from G onto Main Street.
Right.
Not happening. Probably would have been quicker to go all the way to Monmouth and turn east.
Yeah, make the right turn and come down.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Karen, can we please have a roll call
Okay, for the planning commission, Corby Chappelle,
here?
Rebecca Jay,
Here.
Sally Cohen,
Here.
Jose Vasquez.
Here.
And for historic preservation commission, Curtis Skidmore,
Here.
Jennifer Flores, Rebecca Berry, and the name, Liz Boyer. Here.
Well, welcome members of the Historic Commission. We appreciate you being here. We're gonna have a good meeting, I think, tonight. So I'll let you take it away, Fred.
Yeah, okay.
Jump right to the staff report.
Yeah, so so you'll remember, in December 12th, we had a meeting where we were talking about potential tweaks that we can make for the zoning code, to better anticipate new infill development community. And at that time, we talked about the idea, we looked at the historic residential overlay, we looked at the downtown standards a little bit. And we talked specifically about a couple of half blocks, really, like back here, over here, directly to the north of City Hall, stuff like that. At that meeting, you folks recommended that I try and come up with sort of a third way that was not commercial. The commercial standards, it was not the residential overlay standards that had been adopted as part of the recent historic preservation code change. I went back and I tried to think about exactly how to do that, and I sort of hit a dead end a little bit. And part of the reason I didn't hit a dead end, what I would argue is that I realized that we have some more fundamental issues with our zoning code that we might want to address, sort of outside of a third way. Potentially, we need to address something more fundamental, and that's our height limits. So here's something that I prepared for this meeting, so we can sort of take a look at how things are going out there, and then we can talk a little bit about our existing standards. That's the PDF. We could put that PDF up. One of these. Right, so what is interesting about this document, or what is interesting about our downtown? Not really interesting, I think. What you can, let me we'll just sort of identify some takeaways. One, buildings are narrower than if somebody were to come in here and develop on an existing lot. A lot of times we're going to get a wider building. See, you look at some of these buildings in the downtown right now, like say the Thai place is 55 feet wide, but you can see how clearly it's divided into two sections. That's 27 and a half feet essentially per storefront, right? And you can see it's a slightly bigger building that's divided into two storefronts. It creates a smaller area along the street that sort of gives the street interest, right? Some of the bigger buildings that we have, really the one that is the largest on Main Street, what we have right now is actually the old Sperling building, which is 104 feet wide. It's 38 feet tall. So why am I bringing this up? Our existing standards in the downtown zone allow 45-foot height limits, and they also allow the possibility of getting to 55 feet if you meet certain standards. Some of those include if you have 3-bedroom units. Some of those include if you have a certain amount of area devoted to community space or something like that. So you can essentially get a bonus height up to 55 feet. Some of those include things like solar panels. So I guess the thing that I would like to bring to your attention and sort of have the discussion about is currently 45 feet with the potential of going up to 55 feet is higher than some places in the downtown. In fact, all places in the downtown. What I would say too is things like, and I'm just going to point at the Winoker lot, the dentist lot where there's a small building on it, a very long bit of street front, 216 feet. If 216 feet were to develop with potentially a 55-foot tall building, that would feel, from my perspective, a very large building. And where the dentist is, and so potentially that's another thing to consider is right now we allow 45 feet, which we allow 45 feet by right, which is taller than all places in downtown except for the tower on the historic buildings. We allow 55 feet with a bonus if you achieve certain things, and we have no limitation on how long a building can be, and so when we look at that, 216 feet would be significantly wider than this Sterling building. One of the things that I'm looking at downtown, the longest exposed portions of buildings that we see anywhere in downtown are on the side streets. So when you think of Ash Creek Veterinary and how it goes down the feet, got a long exposed portion on C. Same with the Cooper building on C, you go down C, you have 148 feet of exposed building, but that's as long as it gets. The first thing so it seems to me that we have 3 things that we could potentially address in dealing with this. One is the height limitation itself. One is the allowance of a bonus density and how you might achieve a bonus density, or if you want to say a bonus density, but it's a bonus height. How you could achieve a bonus height, and then can't remember what the third thing.
Width,
Breaking up the bottom.
Oh yeah, breaking up the bottom. There you go. Did you have something, Becky?
no, I was just gonna say width, the distance.
Oh, wait, yes. Yep, so what you'll see are there, so I did stop there and just ask if there are any questions or if you folks have any thoughts about any of that stuff that I've presented so far.
What are the current requirements for the extra bonus to the 55 feet?
Right, so great question. If you go to this packet for this meeting and you look at the bottom of page 3 or page 9 of 10, excuse me. So it starts on the bottom of page 9 of 10, but then it continues on in page 10 of 10, and so it says height bonuses may be allowed to extend to a height of to extend the height of a building to a maximum of 55 feet if amenities are provided. And so right now it talks about amenities for independent, or it talks about outdoor recreation facilities, basketball courts, tennis courts, swimming pools. It talks about common open or green spaces for community gatherings. It talks about children play areas with play structures It talks about 3-bedroom units, it talks about solar panels for solar water heating and electricity, and when we look at those. There's, as they're written right now, and none of them specify an amount. It just sort of said, if you have 3-bedroom units, you can get to 55 feet. If you have solar panels, you can get to 55 feet. And so what you'll see, and this is just a draft, we can mess with this as much as we want. I just put this out there, because this was just sort of my thinking. But when we look at these things, it makes sense to me that we would add some sort of standard that, so it's like actually a certain amount of something, so it's not just if you have a couple of 3-bedroom units, you get to the 55 feet. That makes.
Well, yeah, but there's nothing 55 feet right now.
That's kind of what I was gonna ask. You've got, what's the highest of the tower, 38, so
It's 40,
40.
yeah.
So what's the purpose of the 55 feet?
That's just how it's written right now. I don't.
Was that something new or was that in there?
The dark, so it's been-
I was wondering if it's recent last few years.
So you're not talking about being built, you're talking about when you put it down where there are no buildings inside, right? You're talking about future, potential for the future.
Right, or I'm talking about, for example, I mean, one lot that we can talk about is the lot with the mural on it. The lot with the mural on it is a vacant lot. So if we're talking about potentially 55 feet.
It goes substantially higher than all the surrounding
There's
buildings.
bills.
So is there anyone here that is, I got this feeling like 55 is excessive.
Yeah.
Why did we have the 55-foot bonus? Was it just something that got thrown in there at some point years ago and we didn't realize? You know, that's really a lot higher, because 45 seems like a good height for a maximum height for the commercial areas with what we've got.
But did we not have to approve something for the top of the hotel? That it exceeded something? Do you remember?
But it's not in that zone.
There was.
Do you remember, Corey?
Yeah,
I don't.
The hotel. It's a different zone, but I did note the height of the hotel and the second floor is roughly 49 feet tall to the roof balcony. This stair tower adds another 10. So,
That's a unique
59.
property in as much that it sits down lower than the rest of the whole town.
Mhm.
So that I could see happening, but and it's already there. So we're looking at future infill. Why have the 55? That's my
You
question.
lose the character of what you have downtown if you have a massive building there. It seems to me you lose what you're trying to preserve.
Right. I think if, I mean, I think it'd be a good idea to throw the 55 in the garbage and just put it at 45. And if the city's trying to promote those other things, give them some other incentive. I don't know what it'd be, but
That's the other thing, too, that, this is nice and then there's people in that entity, right? But when you look at this, kind of, where's the tennis court gonna go?
Right.
Here, where is the swimming pool gonna go? Here, where are these amenities, the basketball court, it's not gonna go into the.
Right, and so there's stuff like that, and so it seems to me that. The three things that we can consider are height. Is the height right, and what you'll see that, what I suggested was something where it was like, it defines the height to the.
so
To the front of the facade to 40 feet and then requires a setback for anything above it. Just to obscure the view of the upper stories if we were to do something like that. That was what I suggested with this code language. I'll tell the story. I think the planning commission's heard it before. My first job was in a little community that's on Whidbey Island. And I would ask people, what is the tallest building in downtown? They'd be like, the Red Dog or something, I think. It's not what it's called. They thought, it was a big red building at the end of the downtown, they said that every time.
This one is
That
so
building.
ugly.
No, you
Yeah,
gotta
remember,
jump
there
to
used
the
to be a
other side of the
different-
street, and they're like, the store? No. And it was actually a building that an architect had designed, and they tied the roof lines into the neighboring buildings, and then they stepped back. And you couldn't even see the step back from the street.
So would the requirement be that it would be, like, what kind of step back requirement would you have to achieve that? Is it a certain number of feet? For how high the additional?
So, communities do any number of things. With that, like literally when I was looking into this, I looked at all sorts of codes. Some people do a foot step back for every foot in height that you go up. So something like that. So essentially you get 10 feet back and go 10 feet up. So some people do stuff like that. What I suggested was just a simple, I said an 8 to 10 foot setback. Because then you could create usable outdoor space for the upper unit.
That's right.
Upper unit there.
Yeah. That's right.
Six, in my perspective, is far too small, that's not a comfortable outdoor space. And it doesn't really achieve.
I almost feel the opposite ratio should be applied, like 12 feet setback for 10 feet of height. Something like that to make sure that you're definitely not gonna. Cause you get down to the say you get a building up here in downtown and you go down to the park, then you look up and just kind of, you don't have a good enough setback. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not sure if I like it, but I'm not opposed to it. But I think that bigger ratio of step back, I would think we did get that would be more appropriate. And a big building, that's not much.
You know, but looking at our little town. You know, I'm afraid that if you make it too high, like the 55 foot, you're gonna end up like, you know, they did in the Chicago area, you know, where everything was so tall that you block out the sun. And everything's so dark. This is what's gonna happen up here, and we don't need that.
Right, I understand what you're saying. I mean, a step back on a roof is gonna, it's gonna help limit that, because essentially you're moving back shadows away from the street.
But you still need it.
What's that?
You still need it being 55, so you
It would have the potential of a developer putting an actual floor on the.
Right, and I mean, one of the things that I would love to just point out here is, I mean, we do have standards. This all happens in the context of all of the other standards that we have for our downtown area. And I mean, there extent, if you look at our commercial design standards, from chapter 33 in our code, we have a lot of standards. One of the standards is 15-foot first floor height. So we require the first floor height of a building to be 15 feet. That eats away at a lot of the height really quick. And I'll just point out that some of our tallest buildings in the downtown, like for example, the Tide Place, is 2 stories.
Because they're both.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question that has absolutely nothing to do with historic preservation, but I'm curious. Do we, when a structure goes over a certain time, do we require?
I don't know. I'm not up to date with the whole, that's Jeff Kennedy, like I stay out of questions like that. Like if it's outside my expertise, that's about.
Wouldn't it build up the ADA plan?
Yeah,
I know. in Portland,
But
I was
Brad,
talking to somebody
that means
yesterday.
that Brad doesn't have an elevator in his building. So he's able to be ADA compliant without.
I was talking to someone in Portland just this last week, and they said they're not required to have an elevator, it goes over 4 stories. So I was thinking, wow, it's kind of crazy. That's why I asked the question, this came up recently. I was thinking,
We're not talking about 40-story.
well, we're talking about the possibility of more stores without 55 foot buses.
Well, but nobody could buy them.
Well,
It's not.
let's see, is anybody interested in the bonus side if they're gonna set that?
Yes.
Is anybody here interested in the 55?
It's so hard to know what we'll think in the future, right?
That's
Like, you're
exactly
deciding-
right.
You're deciding things for the future, it's so. Because right now, we know it's not needed, but
Right now, but, you know, there's no.
Okay, so since it seems today. The 55's. Nothing we want.
We don't.
I just have a question, is what you're talking about here, Fred, is just for the downtown area, the historic area?
So.
Or does it apply elsewhere within the city?
Great question, Becky, because as we all know, zoning applies to form, use, and geography, so it's super flexible. So we could tweak the standards to a specific geography. We could say along Main Street, thou shalt only have a 40-foot tall building, right? We could do that. That would be completely an appropriate thing to do. We could say along certain street fronts, we could define the street fronts. We could say in the downtown, you have to have 40 feet. We could say that, and then we could allow taller buildings elsewhere in the community. What I was thinking is that these standards would apply as sort of blanket to the mixed use pedestrian friendly zone. And the reason that I would do that and not apply them to the historic preservation standards is because
We already have something better.
well, you kind of do, but
Yeah.
also there are lots that are right on the periphery of the district, like behind Henry Hill's house, that are not in the historic district, but are in the mixed use pedestrian friendly commercial zone. And so it makes more sense to me, rather than making the change to the historic standards, to do it to the underlying zone. And say, this is the standard for the zone. Another lot that I'll just point to is the Winover lot. The dental lot over there, 216 feet wide. If a building were to go on that, that would not be subject to historic preservation review, because it's outside of this.
Oh.
But it's in NUPC,
But it's in there.
but it's in UPC, so if we make a tweak to the NUPC. 40-foot maximum. Basically covered any height issues for both the historic district and downtown.
Right,
Well,
Okay,
but it would also apply to central plaza if we did that. And
right. So we basically cover the area that we're most concerned about. So that seems like, I don't think there's anyone here opposed to that, so.
I would probably be opposed to that.
You opposed to it?
Again, I agree. We can't anticipate what the future is going to bring to us. I would hate to see us ban something.
right. But new construction is not the reinforcements or. Whether we have this.
What would be a scenario? Say that we enacted a 40-foot height problem, height limitation. And 25 years from now, whatever we say, we may have a meeting like we're having right now, and they change it. It's not something that's irrevocable, but it's what we envision for the near to intermediate term future. And I don't think that we should say, well, we can't, we don't have 20/20 vision 100 years from now, we shouldn't do anything. I think it's a good thing. It protects the visual integrity of the historic district by changing the NPC. We'd love to go to some big, say a big apartment development on the north end of the town, or some other place that we haven't even annexed, maybe south, where we're looking, they can put up something large. We'll just address a really small area, which we're all concerned about, and it's not irrevocable.
I agree, and none of the things that we're doing are irrevocable, I mean, we're doing the best we can with what we have right now, and this is This is what we're working with, we're not working with 55 feet right now. That's a future plan. Not the present, and here we are in the present to take care kind of what we have now in the present and not make any big reasons for anything not being able to get changed, but all we can do is like kind of do it for right now.
Becky,
I have a question, Fred. You said something about it would, if you made this for the zone where the dentist's office is, it would also affect Central Plaza. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what I said. We could tweak the geography.
Yeah.
Make it different though.
Because to me, that seems like a good place to have something higher. If you wanted to have something around that big parking lot near the schools,
Which area you're talking about?
this what they call Central Plaza, where
The old Ross
Boston
Market.
used to be. Where the
You're talking about the
shopping center,
shop.
right,
Okay,
yeah, there you go.
okay, so is that part of the NEPC?
Central Plaza, yeah.
So we could do a cutout. I agree with that. I didn't realize what he was. My ignorance, I never call that Central Plaza. It's not considered hotel.
Well, no, it's just Fred that who's taught me to call it that. I have lived here when I was a kid. And I think-
Mayfair Market,
Yeah, Mayfair, Erickson's before that.
the donut shop.
Well, I think Fred was just saying to limit it to the down, like have verbiage in there that would say like this part is protected. It kind of leaves the other areas open instead of getting like, okay, well, this part can have it and that part can have it, but this one can't. Just limit it to along Main Street and maybe certain. What was the other thing that you said?
Yeah, I mean, we could say, we could limit, the 40 feet specifically to the downtown.
Yeah.
Overlay. There is a downtown overlay, we could just tie it specifically to
That
that.
downtown.
And that includes the dentist place? Does that include the,
Oh, it's currently, open or so be that.
so Fred, does that include the,
Downtown overlay.
Yeah.
Over the dentist office.
yeah, does that include the dentist office?
I don't think so.
Because you need to do something to include that.
One on the top of the other, top of the others.
I know, I get it all confused.
But downtown. Black.
So ask that question one more time, Becky.
So if does the downtown overlay include the dentist area?
It should, we can double check it on this.
Okay, that would be my biggest concern.
Yeah. Then you got-
Where Karen's finding it.
Maps.
There we go.
There it is.
We didn't get that
It's
one.
zoomed in around downtown.
The black line.
Perfect.
So, yeah, it's a solid black right here, it's a downtown overlay.
Okay, so that does include the dentist's office.
Yeah, it should.
Yeah.
See, but it's right outside of the historic district.
Right.
District boundary.
Right.
So could we include the downtown overlay and, what is it, the DRC, what's that?
That's downtown riverfront zone.
Can we apply to that too?
We already have buildings over.
Well, they'll be grandfathered in. I'm talking about the future.
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
We already have buildings over, 45-foot tall in that zone,
It's only for new construction.
From today.
right? You could do that. What I would argue is exactly your argument that you made about the hotel where it slopes down. So the added height, even this building, when you're up on this street,
You're right.
it's
I'm
It's
actually arguing against what I was the point I made before.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
Well, when you're on the corner there of Osprey, we're talking about the corner of Osprey and Main Street.
Mhm.
You're not looking down, it's kind of flat here, you don't look down when you turn out the Main Street. to
But
take
the
us.
corners and like that.
That's also a good point.
Fred's right, it's exactly what I argued before, that it's a step down, so there's a matter.
Mhm. I'm still thinking to put a parking garage.
Definitely.
If they want to keep people down too. The city owns.
So let me ask, so I guess let me ask just for some clarification then, so am I? If we were to go forward with this, am I just saying, okay, does the, okay. So the way I had written it is I had divided the entire mixed use district, I included the step back from the front of the building. If the consensus in this room is that we put it at 40 feet. Do we want to allow to 45 with a step back?
No.
Or just?
I don't understand why we wouldn't allow an additional amount with a step back.
So we get 3 feet, 3 stories.
So this is just.
You can get 3 stories.
Well.
He said UMUPC.
Yeah, yeah, so we're talking specifically downtown, so let's talk about the downtown.
Minimum 15 feet, right?
Would we want that additional 5 feet with a step back? Or
What do we have that's close to?
right now, the standard said 45 feet, period.
So let me ask. you a
Yeah,
question.
I think it should be 45, if that's what it says right now, I think 45 is fine, we just don't want to go to 55.
Okay, so the first 15 feet
Yeah,
are required for the first
yeah,
floor. And how much did the next 2 floors take out generally? 3-story building.
well,
Well, it's not. Well, then they don't.
yeah, I mean,
What I'm saying is 45 would get you.
you could probably get another story in there,
Yeah.
because you're probably gonna get to, if you. I asked Jeff about it, and we got to 38 with a 3-story building. So if you got.
So 7 feet would give you another.
You could
story.
maybe print down one of the floors, because that would.
Still.
See, that's part of the reason why it's 45 now, because I think that they were trying to allow to get. Story.
45 doesn't give you 4
What's,
stories.
Is there anything that even commission look at that we're pushing for 4 stories?
Lost break points,
Mhm.
or not,
I get it is 4 stories,
Yeah.
but is there anything that's saying that's our goal? Is there a master plan? Is it something the city council has talked about? Is it something the planning commission has talked about? Or something, I know it's something we've talked about. I mean,
But yeah, you mean, why are we doing it?
what would be the purpose, other than adding another floor? Who's pushing for this? That's what, I guess that's what I'm asking. Who's pushing for the 4th floor?
I mean, it's all about density, to me. It's all about being able to create density. And so limiting that. And it's not, I don't think anybody's pushing for it. I think it's allowable.
Right.
And I mean, I think those
I
are the,
understand, but when we're talking about, there's this tension here about keeping it. Some people are concerned about limiting it to 40, like, well, if we make it 45 and put a step back. That gets you maybe an additional floor. Is that something that we're really desiring?
I think it is already 45, our highest building is 40, but it already says 45. is the
Right,
limit.
I'm talking about moving forward. I'm talking about we're talking about changing it today, so.
Just removing the
in our-
55.
As far as arguments go, there's no set height. academic discussion that we're having. We're
It
trying
gives
to
the
have-
appearance that we're going backwards, not forward,
Well,
especially in regards to the conversation about density that's going on right now in Oregon.
And how,
But if we're limiting,
In Oregon, because it's allowed, 45 is allowed right now. Why would we change that to 40?
Well, here's the thing is, you're using a kind of a term that backward is a negative, has negative context to it. We're simply trying to get a height that works for
well,
what we're trying to achieve. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, this is a conversation of the friction is what aesthetics versus function. I guess, and
but
that's what
they're only
I mean,
limited to limit in a certain area.
I mean.
I agree with
I don't
you,
disagree.
actually.
Yeah, I
I mean,
don't
I'm not
disagree
arguing,
with
I'm not arguing that, I get that.
Just don't see any, I don't think it's backwards. I think it's just different. It's backwards.
Especially,
It's about- there's a-
Indicates like.
A value judgment.
We're not looking, we're just trying to set standards that will maintain what the community expects, what we feel is the both commissions is acceptable.
and they're not saying they want to do it all through town, just in the downtown overlay.
It's a very specific place that we're talking about. I think the probably only applies to less than 1,000 parcels, I guess.
Yeah,
Well,
how
could be more.
many lots would be subject to this?
Well, there's a lot of,
I mean, there's a lot in the downtown overlay, and I mean, the implications, like, when we start, like, you can get that map back up there. I mean, let's just, and you can zoom in on the, yeah, the down.
I thought the question was whether or not we were gonna remove the 55, not what, but now we're talking about not only the 45, but just going to 40. If we're gonna change it, you wanna go to 40 instead of just removing the 55?
The 40 initially, and then he was asking about the centers. Like swimming pool, you know. And down
To get to 55, so it's
45,
45.
To get to 45.
Yes, currently 45. has
And to get to
proposed
55,
which
Oh,
is
yeah.
too easily contained together.
So when we look at this, the downtown overlay has a whole bunch of parcels that have the potential to be developed in the future. Like I point out something like this, an Oker lot right here, this dental lot. This is Jack Waddell's property behind Food Arts. This, or excuse me, Seven Star Convenience Store. This is behind Henry Hill's place. Wait, no, this is right here. This is existing city shops. And I mean, at a certain point, those might move. This is on the opposite side of the light industrial zone. Currently, this is currently like, it's older tree service. There's a fence company over here. Something like that might change in the future. Too, so I mean, there's a few larger lots that I look at and think something like that could go in the future. None of those, I don't think, are in the historic district. Yeah, this one's not, so.
What could we do? So right if we do there, like in the, say, keep it at 45 for the downtown overlay. Unless there's storage structure next to the property, so 40 too.
Yeah, then.
I mean,
We did that.
that's part of the reason why I said, you know, you could do something like Main Street too, if you could combine. Because I mean, a lot of, and I mean, it's really easy to look at this and to see this specifically in regards to this, in regards to Main Street, because this is where a lot of this stuff.
Some of it's not on Main Street, the last application we had,
Yeah.
I even mentioned, it's really tall, it's really tall, so it's redone.
Yeah.
I think that the the downtown, that's what I was saying, downtown, overlay, leave it 45 and then make it 40 if there's a historic structure.
I could live with that.
That's a very specific, like, it's making sure that nothing is imposing on the historic view, yet allowing where there's not historic properties to go well to 45. And then throughout the city, you still got that 55 bonus.
Do we define what a historic structure is?
Well, I mean, it's gonna be, I mean, I would love to have it be really simple and say, boy, yeah, historic structure.
Sure.
See,
Sure.
where, I mean, and this is where, honestly, this is where this whole difficulty with this thing is our historic district includes both commercial property and residential properties. And it includes some properties that have been in a state of transition, right? I mean, when we were talking originally about what is in the historic residential plan, what is not. I mean, that was really a conversation about how are some of these properties anticipated to transition. Can't remember where I was going with that. Where did I start with that?
That was very interesting.
Okay, that's what you're
You were defining what a historic property is.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, so we have we have residential properties, right? And it's really difficult to write a set of standards that works for all three circumstances.
Well, here's why that would work still. The 45 and then 40 next to a historic structure. We still have in the historic district, we have other standards we can apply as far as mass can't be disproportionate. So we've got another filter that we can use. So what does it matter? We've got basically two strains, so to speak. And I think the 40/45 in the downtown overlay and leaving the rest the same would basically address the problems we have with height. And it seems like that's something that
It,
I could live with it.
where the difficulty is, okay, if we say 40 feet, if you're next to a historic structure. What does it matter then, is it a residential structure or a commercial structure, or is it?
40 feet would be the maximum, but we have another filter if it's in no, if it's in the historic, if it's in the historic, we have another filter. It's a very small house. Who cares about 40 because it's not going to be allowed by proportionate mass restrictions that we have. Everything's covered then. We've covered it. We've put a cap on the height to make sure we don't go above these downtown buildings, but we've also protected the ones that are slightly off Main Street. And we still have another filter if it's next to a residential.
Right,
You like it a little cleaner, I know.
I kind of do like it a little cleaner, and that's part of the reason why I was like, okay, just stay 40 feet and then step back, and then you have a step back requirement from whatever might be adjacent.
You want it cleaner because it's easier to apply. I understand that. We do what I'm suggesting. I make your job a little more difficult to explain it.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah,
but what he's saying is that we have a double,
we've got different things going on here.
right, it's probably, one or. Anyway, because we got a lot of things going, I mean, buildings are a lot of things, it's not a plan to develop or something like that, where everything is getting built at the same time. When we try to preserve our downtown area and our historic preservation.
So, the big question that I have is the suggestion of 40/45. That's something that could be And it's not the clean,
I gotta figure out how to, I gotta figure out how to write it.
you're really good. As long as you know code,
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's right, absolutely.
yeah, that you know code really well, and I don't think that you can come up with the right word.
Can't stay.
We'll give you a big raise.
Any, that's, so, I mean.
There's no even to talk.
So, I mean, I can't see.
Can't tell.
Until,
Do you, I mean, do you folks wanna weigh in anymore, like, I mean. Thoughts?
No, I think, I agree with Curtis. I think. You'll figure it out. We'll like it. And we'll like it.
Well. I kind of like the cleaner approach myself. I would prefer that we not have something where it's a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of it. To me, juggling little bits of zoning, it would be difficult to deal with.
Especially when a developer comes in and wants to do it his way and it's not clear cut. Clear language, and he'll be talking with you and.
Right.
That could be difficult.
Right,
but if you have it in.
And make it easier for a developer to come in and exactly what they want.
Right. Right.
I mean, I don't think we want to do that.
It'd be easy to understand for.
Right, but we don't want to make it. That's not.
Okay, Alex.
Sorry. you're-
yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize for being late.
Fred,
I
Put me
mean,
on the spot.
yeah,
Fred,
yeah,
I have a question about building something that big. We're sitting on a bunch of fill that's washed off the mountains. There's bedrock a really long ways away. This stuff is mushy and settles. Why would someone put a big, huge building, especially near the river where it's even muddier or clayier, that's not going to stand up that well?
What do they do?
Well,
I mean, you know, you look around places,
mm,
that's.
but I'm just wondering what's the future for a big building on the soils right down here in downtown? And how far do they?
yeah, that's up to the engineers.
Well, yeah, especially with earthquake code.
And
I mean.
and then
the
it all
engineering-
applies.
there, I mean.
That's not for us.
There are all sorts of, I mean, if you are building, you have to do all sorts of soil tests, I mean. From my perspective, if anybody learned the phrase in the city, it's Jeff Kennedy. Because that guy, like, talk about it, the building official, talk about a really smart building official, like, and he reviewed that, and to do a building, you gotta do all sorts of geotechnical analysis, like, do something big, like, and, you know, we gotta show that the soil is gonna support it. He's always looking at stuff like that, and so, so yeah, there are building code requirements that anything new would have to.
It would be like that building in downtown San Francisco, It's- like leans 3 inches a year, something like that.
We talked about, variable.
No, it's a different one.
But it's down there, it's in a fill area.
Yeah, it's
The water has been receding, the water's like 8 blocks from where they occasionally. have
Mhm, water table is-
sites like some ships, but I don't think that, very different situation.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge building. Like 50
He's
stores.
correct that there are code requirements and we have a building official that takes care of them, so. That's not really our
Purview.
wheelhouse or concern. It'll be, those kind of things will be filtered, again, another filter.
Right.
Yeah, we just want buildings that don't detract from our current historic district. Like the district is the resource, the entire district, not singular buildings. So we want buildings that don't detract from it by being so different that they take attention away from the historic, from the
So there was another.
founded.
Yeah, there wasn't one.
There was another thing, so I did also mention building width. One thing that I'll mention, the type of the draft language, I just included something simple that says, hey, if you're bigger than 100 feet, you gotta design your building to appear like multiple structures, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I will just call attention to one more thing. Our height limit in residential zones is 35 feet, and that's to the average peak of the road. If somebody built a 35-foot tall residential structure to the average peak of the road, that would be really tall in a number of our residential areas. And so I would recommend that we define that a little better, and I think I included that in the packet as well.
Right.
Page number 8, what I think we should do is just mention that it's to the peak of the road, not to the average height of the road, and then define a maximum peak height. Which again, I've looked at all of these different codes and how people are doing this stuff to define form. And that was one of the, that's what I saw as a break. Okay. I double checked it versus something for the. I think that we should do that because, if you have certain developments coming into the community and, oh yeah, they sort of townhouse, I tried to show them the story of townhouse that is fine. It's like that. Really,
It did look good.
it's really, but,
I think it was a good show.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else?
No, I think that that's pretty good for this, and I see our time is ticking, I see the audience definitely for the automatic. So, probably a good time to end it. I will say that by changing the height, really regardless of when doing anything to it, if we want to make this, we're gonna have to send out notice to every affected property owner. So that's direct mail. It's called, I think it's better 56 notice. And so I have to send that out. I want to say this, like, it's a fairly lengthy notice process. So, if we're all comfortable with it, I'll send out that notice. It's quite possible that, that will depend, any sort of hearing that we have on it, because it is a reduction in what's allowed, currently. So you gotta provide notice.
And that's not the ordinance to city council.
And what?
It's called, I think it's-
Where you keep all that in your brain, but.
And so is that would be
It's gone once I use it.
It wouldn't appear so.
That would be specifically for the planning commission, but I'll probably bring it back to you guys, just saying.
Anything else then? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, folks.